James, I'm wondering specifically about the impact here when it comes to guidance for some of these companies which have not been faring so well up to this point in the market. What do you expect to hear? What should investors listen for?
Yeah, I think timing is critical here, right? I mean, the hope is that over the next couple of weeks and certainly the next couple of months, this virus will begin to stabilize and die down. Unfortunately, for a number of these travel names, starting with some of the cruise lines next week, Royal Caribbean, they're going to have to report amidst a significant amount of uncertainty. So my expectation would be this coronavirus thus far has been a material impact. The cruise lines canceled all the cruises coming out of China over the weekend. Each voyage that's lost, we estimate, is $3 to $4 million of lost revenue and about 2 cents to earnings for Royal Caribbean. And so unless major positive developments come between now and when they report next week, I think they're going to have to be extra conservative in terms of how they think about guiding for the full year.
Tom, some of Booking's units have significant exposure here, but, I mean, the stock's done terrible this year so far. So at what point is this potentially an opportunity for investors who are thinking long term?
Yeah, look, I think when it comes to China specifically for the online travel names like Booking and Expedia, China itself they don't really have much direct exposure there. They haven't really been able to crack into that market. It's really been Trip.com Group, formerly Ctrip, that really has kind of the point of sale business in China. If we see that coronavirus expands kind of more broadly throughout Asia-Pac, then I think you have to worry a bit more for these companies, particularly Booking.com. They've invested a lot of money in not only their Booking.com brand, but they also have an asset there called Agoda. But even then, you got to sort of look at it between destination travel and point of sale. When it comes to destination travel, which we think maybe is 20% of, say, Booking.com's business, Asia-Pac destination travel, those people will decide to go somewhere else.
So it's down 4%. Is that an overreaction?
Well, I think it's down 8% since the close on Friday before the long weekend. I wouldn't be surprised to maybe see it down a couple more percent here, as long as this looks like it's going to be a Zika type of time frame. If this looks like it's going to drag on for several months, more than a month and a half, 2 months, then I can see the stock sliding more.
James, hotels. Can we talk about where exposure to Asia and China lies the strongest?
Well, I don't follow the hotels specifically, but I guess one of my concerns would also just be, how is this going to impact Western travelers? We talked to about 400 people over the weekend to try to get an idea of, whether people would be scaling back on their travel. And to our surprise, we found that about 20% of people, these are Western consumers, are at least a little bit nervous about either certain types of travel, air, train, cruise, or just travel in general. And so my concern would be, at least temporarily, that this is going to depress bookings in the short term.
Yeah, so much will depend on headlines regarding person-to-person transmissions in North America. Are there benchmarks, Tom, on how stocks underperform in prior periods like this?
Yeah, so the group we look at the most closely is the online travel space. You can't really look at SARS, unfortunately. That was sort of too early for these businesses. They didn't really have Asia-Pac kind of built out or China as a market yet. For us, Zika, I think, is the most instructive. There, as I said, you certainly saw less destination travel to the Caribbean and to Latin America. But thankfully, companies like Booking.com, companies like Expedia, they have big global footprints. And if you want to go on vacation and you decide you don't want to go to the Caribbean anymore, but you want to go somewhere, Booking.com and Expedia can still kind of capture that revenue. In the case of Zika, the stocks were weak, I think, for about a month and a half, and then actually ended up surpassing kind of where they'd been before Zika launched. So, again, as long as coronavirus here doesn't follow a horribly different trajectory in terms of timing, that's how we think about it.